So in the last episode you saw me starting to clean the cylinder head off of the Buell, and we made some good progress, and we took out the valves and the valve springs, and we discovered that we really needed to replace the valve guides and we needed to replace the valves. So we ordered new valves, we ordered new valve guides, and we recently dropped the cylinder head off at Southeast Cylinder here in Orlando. And behind me I have the end result. It's like Christmas. I cannot wait to open this thing up. We also have the top rocker assembly here. I picked up a digital torque wrench, and Auto Machine Works here in Orlando as well. They installed new piston rings that I ordered from Harley, and they honed my cylinder, so we should have everything here we need. I also have a new C-clip for the wrist pin, and here is the gasket kit that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and get started. Here are the old valve guides. You can see that they are in pretty bad shape. Let's take them out of the bag, why not? Now you can, I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but there is definitely rust on the inside of these things. They are not in the best shape. 99% sure they're out of tolerance, and it was definitely time to replace these guys. Let's look at the other one too. Oh yeah, and it looks like they had actually destroyed this one in order to get it out. No problem. These are just gonna end up going in the trash. So those can go over there. Now on to the fun stuff. I asked them to keep any gaskets that they removed. They actually ran this thing through a bath to clean it. And here are two gaskets we'll be replacing. And this bolt went to the throttle body manifold. So we will be keeping this. These two, what are they called? These two O-rings are gonna be trash, but we will need to keep this bolt. All right. Let's get to the rest of this here. You know what? Let's save a little bit of time here. Already this thing looks a lot better than it did. All right, let's see what we're working with here. So we've got the new valve guides and valve seals. New valves. Wow, look at that. And it looks like they did blue it to make sure they had good seating. Very nice. Now let's see if we can get a shot in there. Wow, look at the difference. That is amazing. I'm gonna put an image up on the screen of what the combustion chamber used to look like. Wow, that is phenomenal. Here's your exhaust port and your intake port. What a difference. That is incredible. The guys at Southeast Cylinder had definitely surpassed my expectations. Now there's where those new O-rings are gonna need to go. Very pleased with this. Excellent. So this is just another close-up of the intake port. And man, it was worth every penny to have them take care of this thing. Again, I'm gonna put an image up on the screen of what this used to look like, and it is just a complete night and day difference. I could not be happier with this outcome. Absolutely beautiful. All right, so right now I'm just prepping the surfaces for the gaskets. And this will be for the base gasket. The cylinder was honed and new piston rings were added. Again, that was by Auto Machine Works here in Orlando, Florida. And there's really not a whole lot of prep that this thing needs. I'm just running over the surface here with some light Scotch-Brite pads. And some WD-40. I'm going to fill up the cylinder so that stuff doesn't get down in between the sides, and just try to do the top surface here, because this really needs to be cleaned quite a bit before putting it back on the bike. So I'm going to go ahead and time lapse this, and hopefully when it's done we'll see a considerable difference. So in the process of cleaning the top surface, I had to remove 2 O-rings. I believe they're just these little 2 Viton O-rings, and I'm pretty sure the Harley dealership has some in stock. So I'm gonna run over there real quick because I've got it broken down this far. It would be stupid to have some oil leakage just because of not replacing these 2 little O-rings. So let's go pick up a couple of them, and then we'll keep moving. All right, so I just got back from Orlando Harley Davidson, and I got a few toys. So they had a sale on, surprisingly, Buell XB oil filters, and I was gonna need one anyways, so I bought 2 because I'm being optimistic that this thing will survive an oil change. All jokes aside, I wanted to have 2. And thankfully, I love that this bike has a lot of cross compatibility with the Sportster 1200, because our O-rings that we needed to replace on the cylinder, they had tons of them. So as you can see, we're gonna go ahead and replace these, and I'm going to wipe this down a little bit more before I actually drop the O-rings on, and we're going to use our trusty oil dispenser here, put a little bit of oil on here and then slide them over top. But I'm gonna have to remove the paper towels as well, and I believe, yep, that's all I got from Harley Davidson. So I'm gonna clean this up just a little bit more and go ahead and install the O-rings. Alright, now that the surfaces are prepped and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and install 2 of our 4 O-rings here. About 4 because obviously it's 2 per cylinder. So let's grab 2 of these guys. Okay, there we go. Don't want to lose them here. And I'm going to put just a little bit of oil, I don't know if you can see this or not on camera. So now, before I can even think about putting this on the bike, we have to prep the surface, the gasket surface on the engine itself. So our base gasket is going to go on this side, on this surface here, and the opposite mating surface on the engine needs to be cleaned. I think I already cleaned it a little bit in our second episode, but I want to go over, start from scratch, WD-40, Scotch-Brite pads, and clean it up with some denatured alcohol. Get it perfect, ready to go. As you can see, these surfaces are really good, and hopefully we'll be able to put it on tonight. All right, I've gone ahead and removed the plastic bags we had covering cylinder number 1, or what's left of it at the moment. And I've got some paper towel jammed down in here, and I've got paper towel inside the push rod receptacles. And essentially the purpose for that is so that when I'm scrubbing with the Scotch-Brite pad, my shavings from the pad aren't falling into the engine. Because I noticed when I would scrub the cylinder head with these pads, I would have little dust particles that I'm even getting them on my finger as I speak here from these Scotch-Brite pads. And I don't want that getting down into the engine, because that is just stuff we do not want to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and scrub away at this, and when we're done, we'll use some denatured alcohol to clean the surface, get it prepped, and then we should be good to drop the cylinder on. My biggest concern at the moment is being able to do this by myself, because I have to balance the cylinder with the piston hanging just barely out enough to slide the wrist pin through, and then I have to attach a new C-clip, all with only 2 hands. So if I don't feel comfortable doing it, I'll wait until I have an assistant to help me out, but I'm gonna go for it. So let's see how it goes. Alright, so now that everything else is pretty much ready to go, as you can see, we've got a nice clean surface here. What I've done is I've pulled the piston up just almost to the point where the rings are exposed, but we don't want to expose the rings because they'll fly out, and I just spent money having someone install these rings and hone the cylinder for this new set of rings. But what I've done is I've raised the piston just enough so that we can pop out our wrist pin. And what that's going to do is that's going to let us slide the piston right over our connecting rod. We'll push the wrist pin through the connecting rod, and then I got some new parts from Harley. Each time you take out one of these C-clips, it looks like a circle, but there's actually 2 separate C-clips in here. There you can kind of see how they separated. This C-clip will get installed right here. Each time you take it out, you should replace it with a new one. They're $2 each, so it's kind of a no-brainer to replace it whenever you remove one. However, I don't have the special Harley tool to install it, so I'm going to have to use needle nose pliers, which is probably not the best tool for this installation. And I could be putting unnecessary strain on the C-clip, but whatever, I don't have a tool, so we'll make do. So now we are pretty much ready. Like I said, game plan, slide out the wrist pin, set this onto the connecting rod, and then slide the cylinder down once we've got the C-clip in place. But the problem is I did this with 2 people. I did this with David from Just the Other Dave YouTube channel. And he's not here today. He's actually working on putting together a really cool machine shop in his garage. He's getting a lathe soon. So shout out Dave. Hopefully I can use your tools sometime. But he's not gonna be here to help me with this, so that's why I've been talking about maybe having a sidekick. I don't know if I can do it or not. I should know pretty quickly when I hoist this thing over the connecting rod whether it's gonna work or not, because this is kind of tough to bend and pop in place. It's got to land perfectly in this little groove, and yeah, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, so wish me luck. Alright, so that probably looked incredibly easy with our time-lapse video, but I assure you that was no easy task without the special tool. So as you can see, we've got our C-clip in place. Our wrist pin is locked and ready to go. I put these paper towels here, and I'm glad that I did, because as I was trying to put the C-clip in, it kept falling, and it probably would have fallen into the engine at least 4 or 5 times. So that saved us. Fell onto the floor, no problem. So now that this is in and ready to go, we've got our base gasket in. Wanted to make sure I didn't forget that. But I need to tighten down the push rod assembly before sliding the cylinder all the way onto these studs here. So we're gonna go ahead and I think I've had my push rod assembly all wrapped up this entire time. So I'm gonna go unwrap it, clean it, and then we'll be installing the push rod assembly. So there's really not much to this push rod assembly. It's just this plastic housing and then our 2 push rods. I've got them in a specific order. I've removed them same order, so I want to make sure they go back in the same place. So I'm just going to clean the plastic housing a little bit, and then we're going to reinstall it on the bike. Now, if we're really out here being organized, my push rod hardware should be in one of these baggies. And I should have a notebook that tells me what those numbers mean. So in here, I think I've got a diagram. Shout out to Chris for blowing up the Facebook Messenger. I thought it was in this. It should be in this one. Here we go. My diagrams here. Push rod. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. My crude little drawing here, but it works. So now I can reinstall my push rod assembly using matching my bolts to my diagram. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright guys, the push rod assembly is installed. So now the moment of truth, where we slide the cylinder the rest of the way down onto the piston. Just making sure nothing is blocking us. We got plenty of clearance. And the push rod assembly to our gasket, our base gasket. Our alignment pin is on the base gasket, and we'll want to make sure that our alignment pin lands right inside the cylinder. Gasket's still good. It is. gasket's in place. We're on the alignment pin. Man, that is a beautiful sight, folks. Very happy about that. Looks great. All right. Now it's time to install the cylinder head. Getting excited. All right, so I'd like to point out something kind of interesting. So earlier today we went to the Harley dealership to pick up this set of O-rings right here on top of the cylinder, those brown O-rings. Now, this is the head gasket that came off the bike that goes right here. And if you look, you can see that there's clearance around this head gasket for those Viton O-rings. Now, the official gasket kit that I bought from Buell says do not use with O-rings. And if you overlay these on top of each other, you can see that the hole is smaller. So in hindsight, I really did not need to go get these O-rings because I'm just gonna have to take them off and throw them away. But better to be prepared, and no big deal. I think they were like $2 each, so, or even less than that. But anyways, let's keep moving forward with the installation of the head. So it looks like the guys over at Southeast Cylinder Head already machined down the surface, so that took all the fun out of my job. No, but seriously, they did an amazing job with the cylinder head. I am extremely impressed. All I need to do is wipe the thing down, and we're gonna be good to put this thing right back on. Alright, so where we last left off, we had just put all the bolts in on the cylinder head here, and now it's time to install the rocker assembly and the rocker cover. I have had that sitting over on the workbench now for quite a while, wrapped up in a plastic bag just to kind of keep the dirt and dust off of it. So now it's time to prep these gasket surfaces and install it on cylinder 1. So this is the main reason I like to stay organized. As you can see, I've got the rocker assembly, all the hardware individually labeled in baggies. I've got diagrams for myself on how to put it back together. And I've got the manual here telling me the torque specs and everything. So we're gonna go ahead and start installing the rocker assembly. Hopefully by the end of this time lapse, we will have some good results. Alright, so we successfully installed the rocker assembly. Everything looks good, it's all tightened down to spec. We got our new gasket in there, and now we've got to install our rubber gasket here, and there's another rubber gasket right there. I've got to clean and prep the rocker cover sitting over on the workbench. This surface has already been prepped, so just a little bit of cleanup and some compressed air, and we should be good to go for wrapping up the installation of cylinder 1. Alright guys, so just like that, cylinder 1 is complete. Now, I'm really familiar with how to take this thing apart and put it back together again, so I'm debating whether or not I want to work on cylinder 2 tonight, but I may finish this episode here, just wrapping up cylinder 1, and we'll kick off the start of the next episode, breaking down cylinder 2.